Simultaneous Spanish, Cape Verdean Creole, and Vietnamese interpretations are being provided for this meeting using the language interpretation function within Zoom. We ask that you please be patient in case of any technical issues. Language interpretation will not be enabled until instructions on how to access interpretation services have been translated into Spanish, Cape Verdean Creole, and Vietnamese. Once interpretation has been enabled, a globe icon will appear at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Also, an important reminder to all who are presenting and commenting today, we ask that you please speak slowly for the interpreters. If you are speaking too fast, I may interrupt you and ask you to speak more slowly so that the translator can catch up with your information. Thank you. To enable interpretation for Spanish, Cape Verdean Creole, or Vietnamese, please click the globe icon on the bottom of your screen and select the language you wish to listen to. Also, you must mute original audio. Okay, so now, Luis, will you please now interpret the instructions that I gave into Spanish?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Luis Clara. Yo soy el intérprete en español para las personas que lo necesitan. Está ubicado el icono del globito. Para las personas que necesitan la interpretación en español, por favor, le dan clic a ese globito. Entonces yo voy a estar interpretando todo de manera simultánea. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Josiane, will you now interpret the instructions I gave into Cape Verdean Creole?
Sure, thank you. Então, para aquele encontro ali, nós sabemos disponibiliza interpretação simultânea na crioulo. Eu te pido para ser paciente na caso de qualquer problema técnico. Interpretação só sabendo ser ativo, hora que notar tudo que é instrução, tudo que é língua. Logo que aquela interpretação estiver ativado, o ícone de globo também aparece na parte inferior de noção. Além de que ela não te pedimos tudo, para nos falar devagar, para ajudar o intérprete. Se nos papel depressa demais, não pode interromper e pedir para nos falar mais devagar. Obrigado. E para permitir a interpretação na crioulo, nós também clica na ícone de globo na parte inferior e seleciona crioulo, para além de que ela nós também deve silenciar aquele áudio original. Obrigado. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, An, will you now interpret the instructions I gave into Vietnamese?
Thank you. Các ngôn ngữ như tiếng Tây Ban Nha, Cape Creole và tiếng Việt sẽ được phiên dịch song song trong cái buổi họp hôm nay. Khi quý vị dùng cái chức năng Zoom, và chúng tôi xin quý vị kiên nhẫn nếu trong trường hợp gặp những trục trặc kỹ thuật, và phiên dịch cái đài phiên dịch sẽ được mở ra khi đã được hướng dẫn xong cách nào mà dùng dịch vụ này, và sẽ được dịch ra bằng tiếng Việt. Và khi phiên dịch đã được mở ra thì cái hình quả cầu nó sẽ hiện lên ở phía bên dưới của màn hình Zoom. Và thêm vào đó thì chúng ta cũng cần phải nhắc nhở những người mà phát ngôn viên một điều là tại vì hôm nay chúng tôi có những cái phiên dịch thì xin quý vị yêu cầu quý vị nói chuyện một cách chậm rãi, tại vì nếu quý vị nói chuyện quá mau thì tôi có thể sẽ phải cắt lời quý vị, yêu cầu quý vị nói chậm hơn để các thông dịch viên của chúng tôi có thể đuổi theo kịp. Và cảm ơn quý vị. Để chúng tôi sẽ mở cái đài phiên dịch ở dưới đây để cho quý vị có thể tham gia vào các đài ngôn ngữ. Có những đài như tiếng Tây Ban Nha, Cape Verdean Creole và tiếng Việt, nó sẽ hiện lên cái quả cầu ở phía bên dưới của cái màn ảnh, và quý vị có thể bấm vào cái ngôn ngữ mà mình muốn lắng nghe. Cái điều quan trọng nữa là quý vị nên tắt cái tiếng. Và cảm ơn quý vị thiệt nhiều. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll now, Ani, will you now please activate the interpretation? We're going to give folks a minute or so to join the channels. See the globe icons at the bottom of the screen and just select the language you'd like to hear. If you're having difficulty activating the interpretation, please call the phone number on the screen. If you have any difficulties with the translation later in the meeting, you can call that same number. We have interpreters available to assist you over the phone. Just a quick confirmation, Secretary Paul-Hemus, are all the channels good to go?
So far, so good.
The project presentation has also been translated into Spanish, Cape Verdean, Creole, and Vietnamese. And these interpretations are all available on the BPDA website at bostonplans.org/about-us/BPDA-board/meetings. Please take note of the website address on the screen to view the translated project presentations. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 121A, and the Acts of 1960, Chapter 652, as amended, to consider the proposed project at 90 Cushing Avenue, 121A project in Dorchester, in the Dorchester neighborhood of Boston, submitted by 90 Cushing North 4 Limited Partnership and 90 Cushing North 9 Limited Partnership. This hearing was duly advertised on February 1st, 2024 in the Boston Herald. This is a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency. Staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, anyone who wishes to testify about the proposed project will be afforded an opportunity. We are taking support and opposition at the same time, so if you're planning to testify, please take time now to verify that your computer microphone is active and click on the hand icon on your Zoom control panel. This will signal to the staff that you would like to speak. When your hand is raised, it will be blue. If you're calling into the meeting and would like to testify, please dial *9 to raise your hand. When I call for all testimony, staff will announce your name and allow you to talk. You must unmute your microphone and your webcam will not be active. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. And finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. And now, Camille, you may now please begin the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board, Director Jemison and Secretary Paul-Hemus. My name is Camille Platt, and I'm the project manager for the proposed project at 90 Cushing Avenue in Dorchester, which is also known as the St. Mary's Center for Women and Children project, which is before you today. The proposed project is located between Cushing Avenue, Windermere Road, Everett Avenue, and Jerome Street on the St. Mary's Center's approximately 2.4-acre campus atop Jones Hill in Dorchester. The project site is currently occupied by the East and Main Building, Chapel, the existing North Building, a 3-story transitional housing building not to be modified by the project, and a tri-level to be demolished parking garage. The proponent proposes to construct the St. Mary's Center campus, owned and operated by St. Mary's Center for Women and Children, a not-for-profit corporation with a mission to empower families to achieve emotional stability and economic independence through education, workforce development, and permanent housing, and is housed in the former St. Margaret's Hospital, a retrofitted maternity hospital with buildings dating to the early and mid to late 20th century. St. Mary's Center currently operates an adult family shelter program and the Young Parenting Living Program for approximately 51 families in the East and Main Building, Chapel, and interconnected existing North Building. In addition to the buildings that are the focus of the project site includes a 3-level, approximately 37,900 square foot parking garage, which will be demolished as part of the 121A project, and a 3-story brick transitional 4-housing building that will not be renovated. The outdoor common areas to be redesigned include 2 playgrounds on the west end of the project site and a central courtyard with a gazebo. The project is seeking a 121A agreement with the city due to the significantly deteriorated structures on the site. The existing parking garage is dilapidated and portions are not utilized due to safety concerns. The exterior of the existing north building and the connection bridge to the east and main building is cracking and would require significant repointing and potential structural repair if the structures were to remain in use. Existing utility systems are at the end of their useful life, are costly to run, and often break down. The existing north building has suffered from floods and leaks, resulting in significant interior damage. The project will also address the underutilized exterior of the campus that is largely inaccessible to individuals with mobility challenges or using strollers. Finally, the project will increase security, lighting, and improve existing border fencing that, despite best efforts of staff, has been the target of vandalism. The Article 80 process began in September of 2023. An Impact Advisory Group, or IAG, was waived for the project due to the significant affordability component. As you are aware, last fall, Mayor Wu signed an executive order to streamline affordable housing in an effort to prioritize the review of affordable housing projects. The BPDA's current practice is to waive IAGs for most projects that include 60% or more of their project dedicated to affordable housing. The proposal did, however, undergo an extensive community process, including a BPDA-sponsored public meeting on October 10th of 2023 that was duly advertised and well attended by members of the public, a presentation to the Jones Hill Association, and multiple abutters meetings were hosted by the proponent. The project has evolved in response to the existing neighborhood context, staff, as well as community feedback. Finally, I would like to thank the elected officials in the Dorchester community who have participated in the Article 80 process over the past few months to guide it to what it is before you today. I will now turn it over to Ford Del Vecchio to walk us through the planning context. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Camille. Good evening, Chair Rojas, Secretary Bolinas, members of the board, and Director Jemison. My name is Ford Del Vecchio, and I'm the BPDA Zoning Compliance Reviewer assigned to this project. St. Mary's Center for Women and Children is housed in the former St. Margaret's Hospital, a retrofitted maternity hospital with buildings dating to the early and mid-20th century. Situated atop Jones Hill, the campus spans approximately 2.4 acres, bordered by Everett Avenue, Windermere Road, Cushing Avenue, and Jerome Street. Accessible from both Cushing Avenue and Windermere Road, the center serves as a vital resource hub for its surrounding community. The surrounding neighborhood is primarily residential, featuring a blend of single-family and multifamily residences, alongside solid businesses situated in the immediate vicinity. It stands between bustling commercial quarters on Columbia Road and Dorchester Avenue. Residents benefit from various amenities, including the Upham's Corner commuter rail line, the Savin Hill Red Line T-stop, and multiple bus routes such as the 15, 16, 17, 18, 41, located immediately off campus. Additionally, the area is enriched by the presence of the Upham's Corner branch of the Boston Public Library, numerous public and charter schools, local grocery and convenience stores, pharmacies, and a diverse array of restaurants and businesses. Next slide, please. There is currently no applicable local plan for the area of this project site, so planning staff reviewed this project within the context of neighborhood amenities in built form, as well as city policies such as complete streets. In addition, the citywide plans such as Imagine Boston 2030 and Housing Boston 2030 were used to inform the decision that planners made in their review of this project. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to the development team to present the project in more detail.
Okay, do we have someone from the proponent?
We do. Are you controlling the slides, or are we?
Oh, no, we're going up. So just when they, just say next slide and then they'll.
Perfect. Great. I'm going to kick us off. My name is Alexis Steele, and I'm the president of St. Mary's Center for Women and Children. I'm here with 2 members of my team tonight, Jonathan Law and Mike Doherty. Thank you all again for this opportunity. St. Mary Center is a multi-service organization supporting families who are experiencing homelessness. We empower families on their pathways out of homelessness to achieve emotional stability and economic independence. We serve over 500 women, children, and families each year through several programs, the majority of which are held at our campus in Dorchester on Jones Hill. We do this through several residential programs, including a program supporting pregnant and parenting teen mothers, adult family shelter, and transitional housing for young families coming out of shelter. Throughout this project, we are looking to build a dignified campus created to support families on our main campus in Dorchester. We're also looking to continue our mission in creating 71 units of permanent supportive housing in a new building, restricted to 30% AMI, to provide a continuum of care for families who have previously experienced homelessness. And now I would like to hand this off to Jonathan Law.
And I just remind everyone to speak slowly for the interpreters, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Jonathan Law with Weston & Sampson Design Studio. You can go to the next slide, please. This slide just shows the location of the site. We've talked about before, it's a very topographically challenged location. Open spaces are currently disjointed and disconnected, and the routes through the site are somewhat circuitous. You can go to the next slide, please. These are just some of the existing images. As you can see here, the site is filled with stairs and walls. It makes the area feel unwelcome to residents of the development. The campus is tired and in need of renovation, and the main play areas in the site are not accessible and feel unconnected to the rest of the campus. Next slide, please. So when we began this design challenge, our goal was to create a campus where universal pedestrian access connected the new open spaces together, and we've managed to achieve that. We wanted to provide a safe and a welcoming environment for residents, a place they can call home, where they can enjoy both passive and active recreation, create fun, safe zones for children of all ages, offer play that helps to educate and includes sensory elements, create gathering spaces that are accessible from all corners of the campus. We've included new tree plantings to help buffer the existing neighborhood from the campus. A total of 114 new trees are proposed, a net gain of 90, and we're also preserving 27 existing trees. This helps to reduce the effects of the urban heat island and mitigate stormwater runoff impacts on the site today. The L-shaped building to the top is the new building that Mike Doherty from TAT will talk to momentarily. If you can go to the next slide, please. This slide shows some proposed and existing sections through the site. So the top one shows an existing section that runs east to west through the existing lower inaccessible playground. The section just below that shows how we're using a combination of walls and pathways to create new open space with seating that connects this area to the surrounding campus. The section below that shows the existing conditions that run north-south through the mid-level open green space today. And finally, the section below that shows how we're using landforms with planting to create new accessible connections to the mid-level open green space and campus beyond. During our meetings with BPDA staff, they complimented our approach and appreciate that we are providing a fully ADA accessible design on such a challenging site. Next slide, please. These next two slides show some perspective renderings of the proposed design. The top two show the entry to the existing eastern main building with gathering spaces for residents. The lower two images show connections to the mid-level green space, and then the bottom right image shows that mid-level flexible green space. Next slide, please. The top two images here show the children's playground. Again, sensory play is important here. We're including trees within this planted area, within this play space, to again offset the effects of urban heat island. Color, texture, just creating a really great environment for children. And then the bottom two images show the multi-use sports court and how we're providing accessible connections from that to the rest of the campus, and also incorporating some flexible seating at the same time. And with that, I'll pass it over to Mike Doherty from TAT. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Good evening, everyone. Mike Doherty from TAT. I'm going to walk us through the architectural portion of the presentation. So next slide, please. So here we have the site plan. As has been mentioned, the project sits atop Jones Hill. And in addition to the site and landscape improvements, the project includes the renovation of the East and Main building for 51 shelter units and associated spaces, and the construction of the new North building, which is the L-shaped building on the north of the plan, which will be 71 units of permanent supportive housing. The building was laid out to maximize residential square feet, but also to increase the existing setbacks at the abutting properties. Our overall design goal was to relate the new building to its campus context and mission, but also to be a good neighbor as much as possible while meeting the required program. Next slide, please. This slide starts with the existing conditions in the upper left. This is basically a site section looking, slicing down Windermere and looking directly west. You can see the existing building in the upper left. We worked through the summer and into the fall with the BPDA, design staff, the BCDC, and also with our interactions with the community members. Going to understand concerns and try and respond to them as best we could. The overarching goal was to reduce the apparent scale of the new building by stepping it down the hillside to the north. So you can see sort of the progression, June, July, August, where we're able to actually reduce the initially proposed height of the building by 2 full stories where it abuts those existing residences to the north along Windermere Street. This effort resulted in a more complex building to design and construct, and in effect a little bit more costly, but we were trying to be good neighbors to the best extent we could. Next slide, please. So here you have a view from Windermere of the proposed new building. You can see in the upper right in the inset the existing building, and you get sort of a before and after view. So the new building will replace what's essentially a 137-foot long wall facing Windermere with a 62-foot wide residential building, and that will in effect open up the site so that the views into the site toward the chapel building as well as out from the site are going to be much more pleasant. You're going to see the sky, there's going to be more landscaping, etc. The architectural features, primarily consist of the vertical bay window elements, which are sort of an abstraction of the bay windows and turret windows found in the surrounding neighborhood, as well as sort of a more direct reference to the campus itself with this sort of the horizontal groupings of windows with a decorative accent. Next slide, please. So now we've arrived at the central courtyard space between the existing building and the new building. You can see the curved portion of the facade with the main entry to the new North building. And you can also see pretty clearly here that 2-story step as the building goes off to the north on the left-hand side. I want to point out that the colors that we are using here on these bays are very preliminary, and they'll actually be informed by trauma-informed design research. Next slide, please. Here's a view as we head down Windermere, sort of heading to the north, going downhill, looking back up at the new building with the existing east building beyond. Here you can see a little more directly the design reference of the banded windows in the new iteration on the new North building versus the existing iteration on the east building. Next slide, please. And finally, this view from Everett Avenue really dramatically, I think, shows the massing stepping down the hillside, really following that hillside. The 2-level parking structure is tucked in underneath that, sort of the lowest portion of the new building in the image. And we've tried to use responsible durable materials, including a brick base that relates back to the brick campus buildings, fiber cement siding with varied exposure to create an interesting masonry-related but more economical facade for the majority of the building, and then metal panels at the bay windows. That really completes our presentation for this evening. Thank you very much. We could go to the next slide, which is the final slide, and entertain any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we will, as this is a public hearing, we'll take testimony from the public first. Secretary Paul Hemus, do we have anyone who would like to testify?
Michael Duffy, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Michael Duffy. I'm from the law firm of Tyner, Davis & Duffy. I have an address at 45 Bromfield Street here in Boston. We represent abutters and neighborhood residents. Thank you for making the time for us to be able to be here and speak tonight. I'd like for the board to note that the abutters are generally in favor of affordable housing and are even in support of the project's objectives here. However, the approval process for this application has been faulty, has failed to comply with legal requirements, and has failed to sufficiently consider the interests and concerns of abutters and the neighborhood. As most of you likely know, for more than 20 years, pursuant to an executive order of Mayor Menino in 2000, a project like this has typically involved the appointment of an impact advisory group with the express purpose of ensuring that mitigation efforts are properly and fully considered. No impact advisory group was appointed for this project. The explanation offered for how that requirement could be waived is that Mayor Wu issued an executive order in January 2023 that called for, among numerous other things, a streamlining of the development review process. Mayor Wu's executive order does not, however, repeal Mayor Menino's prior executive order or revoke or waive impact advisory groups at all. In fact, within Mayor Wu's executive order, the language expressly addressing Article 80 review states, and I quote, "The BPDA will continue to improve the development review process to make it more predictable, transparent, and accountable to residents, businesses, and development entities alike." It's difficult to imagine how eliminating impact advisory groups accomplishes any of these express objectives. The information that I have indicates that the BPDA has no standards for when waiving an IAG would be appropriate. It should also be noted that the waiver of the IAG has been used by the development team as a sword to waive off any requests for mitigation or to address any conditions. And we also have significant concerns about whether the BPDA can make findings required for this project. Specifically, the height limitation in this district is 35 feet. The project proposes 78 feet without
I'm
considering...
sorry, you've reached your 2-minute limit, and I just have to be consistent there. So I've got the details of those points, and we'll address that during the question section. Okay, yeah. Anybody else? Secretary Paul Hemus?
Yep. Joe McEachran, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. This is Joe McEachran. I work for City Councilor Erin Murphy's office, and we'd like to go in support today for the St. Mary's project. It's invaluable to our community. They help families, mothers, fathers, people in their weakest positions, and they've always been a great neighbor. So Councilor would like to go on record in support today.
Thank you. Minor Perez, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Madam Chair, members of the board, this is Mina Perez, representing the Carpenters Union. We'd like to go on record in strong support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Minor. Chris Gathman, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Chris Gathman. I'm a resident of Jones Hill, and I've been here lived on the hill for 9 years. The scale of the building is just really, really large, and anytime any other properties have been built on Jones Hill, there was a vacant lot on Sawyer, and everyone kind of made sure that it fit in with the community and that it looks kind of similar to all the other homes. It was set back appropriately. They initially wanted to build it really close to the road, so now it has a front yard, and they were doing that to get more parking, and so there was a lot of conversation around just one house. And the building, you know, that rendering is quite an eyesore. I mean, St. Mary's is an all brick building, and it's not architecturally, like it doesn't stick out. That building the building you're proposing is, I mean, it's just architecturally not very pleasing. It's a bit of an eyesore. Those windows are massive. It's not all brick, and it just seems like, you know, it's huge. And so I think, you know, I've talked to a lot of neighbors on the Hill, and a lot of people are just finding out about this, and they're not so happy about it. It just seems really, really large, like a really large-scale development, and there hasn't been a lot of conversation. As well, people are a little bit up in arms with the, you know, space. I think, what did you guys say, 71 units with 71 parking spaces, or 72 units with 71 parking spaces. That needs to be addressed, because that's egregious and not enough. We know this. Everyone on Jones Hill has a car. There's going to be, you know, a lot more cars on our roads and in parking. I don't think the neighborhood's very happy.
Thank you. Chris Agostino, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Christopher Agostino. I'm a resident on Windermere. I would just like to go on record that I think, as previously stated, everybody is in support of St. Mary's mission and think that they can accomplish this redevelopment in a responsible, appropriate way that blends into the neighborhood and satisfies the concerns of neighbors that have been expressed. However, I think the process is flawed, and I think in the rush to respond to Mayor Wu's executive order and waive the IAG process, a lot's been missed insofar as no replacement process has been implemented that's adequate to fully address the neighbors' concerns and make sure those concerns are incorporated in this decision that the board's going to likely issue tonight to ensure that whatever final permits and approvals are issued adhere to the commitments and promises and requests for mitigation that were made to direct neighbors. And I think during some of the community process, the waiver of the IAG was used by the applicant to say that they do not have to agree to specific mitigation measures. And they kind of used it as a weapon in the process. And I think there are reasonable mitigation measures that could be implemented. It's likely that the applicant is going to have input and actually draft the decision that this board is going to issue. And we'd ask that appropriate conditions that specifically meet some of the requests from the neighbors that will avoid some of the impact here. We request that they're incorporated in the decision so that we can avoid, so that they can successfully build the project.
Thank you, Christopher. Stephen Farrell, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Stephen Farrell. I'm a direct abutter of St. Mary's on Windermere Road. I would like to start off by saying we are very supportive of the mission of St. Mary's. We have been involved in multiple abutter meetings with the St. Mary's team, which we have appreciated throughout the last several months. We also acknowledge and appreciate the steps that St. Mary's has taken to accommodate some of our concerns regarding density. My comments are not necessarily about the content or the details of the proposal. Rather, my comments are about the approach taken, especially in the last few months. Prior to the official filing of the proposal to the city after the October 10th meeting, St. Mary's team was very open and responsive. They made accommodations on several fronts, as I said. Again, that was prior to the official filing of the proposal. Afterwards, however, abutters learned that there was no board appeals process, There's no role for the IAG. And overall, the statements we were told by the St. Mary's team, and I said this to them directly, I said this to Alexis as recently as 2 hours ago, was that they stated that there was nothing they could do. All they did is they redirected us to lawyers and to the BPDA's process that they identified as the ruling determinant. In short, the process after one presentation to the Jones Hill Association, the public meeting that Camille mentioned earlier, and after small iterative presentations to us as direct abutters, the process of conversation stopped. We were told that there was nothing we could do, and that St. Mary's, nothing that St. Mary's could do, and that the proposal is now submitted. Now, there may be others who want to comment on specifics such as road and tree conditions impacted by construction, location of access to the campus, but I can only say that I wish neighbors and abutters had more time to talk to each other in conversation as this started in conversation with us more than a year ago, rather than through letters and through lawyers and hiding behind the process.
Thank you, Stephen. Kevin Whiter, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, hello. I've been on Jones Hill here for 20 years now. I believe that this plan is ill-conceived and lacking in good sense or judgment. And it smells like the housing projects that were put up in the 60s that bred gang violence and increased crime. Architecturally, it's an ugly building and out of character with the neighborhood. I've seen this neighborhood grow. If you've ever been here, it's triple-decker houses and 19th century homes, tree-lined streets. A lot of the triple-deckers have been converted into condos, and a lot of young first-time home buyers have been moving in. People starting families, professionals, working people, and people keep up their houses here. They take care of their yards. They put up decorations at Christmas time. I think this sort of thing would destroy the character of the neighborhood. I was a nurse with the Department of Mental Health. I work with homeless people. I've known hundreds, maybe thousands of homeless people. I understand that some homeless are just disadvantaged by the capitalist system, but many homeless people have problems with addiction, mental illness, and antisocial behaviors. So I'd just like to go on the record as opposing this.
Thank you, Kevin. Would anybody else like to testify about this project? Please raise your virtual hand.
Oh, we got one. 2. There we go.
Dolores, did you want to speak on this project?
Well, thank you so much. I'm just coming in on another matter and seeing the proposal and listening to the comments. And I hope the board takes what's being said seriously and into account. I mean, I don't know anything about this project, and I agree. The building is so unattractive. And it really sounds like this process was flawed, and that, I know that housing is very, very important, but it can't be at the expense of good faith discussions and an open community process. So I just would encourage the board to hear what's being said here tonight, because it sounds very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. Kyle Tilsley, you can unmute yourself.
Hey there, Kyle Tilsley, live at 119 Cushing Ave, close neighbor of St. Mary's. Like my fellow neighbors stated, very in support of St. Mary's, the work they do, but would just like to echo what others have said, in that this process has been handled very poorly. As a neighbor, I feel I was not adequately informed about things, and I know my other neighbors feel the same way. And the building, agree with others, is just frankly very ugly, does not fit in with the neighborhood, and the parking situation would be atrocious. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Kyle. Alexia DeVincentis, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, I'm a direct abutter on Everett Avenue, and I would like to just echo what many other people have said here, which is that I fully support the increased housing for people who need it. However, this structure entirely dwarfs everything around it, and everything around it consists of homes. This is not a neighborhood of multi-story or even mid-level apartments. This is a neighborhood full of homes, and what we are about to be looking at is taking a structure that's already large and making it even more imposing. I also, as a parent of a 3-year-old who walks up and down the street every day to the parks, am concerned that there's been little to no thought given to what this increased parking in the garage situation means for the traffic around here. And I find it highly disappointing that that's not something that it has, at least so far to my knowledge, been considered as part of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexia. Star Vermeulen, you can unmute yourself. Star, I think you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Thank you. I do apologize. So I'd like to actually echo all of my neighbors' sentiment. We're at the bottom of Windermere Road, and we already have significant water erosion issues at the bottom of the hill. You add a much larger building, more people coming down this road on a regular basis. I'm very concerned that the 2 sinkholes we've had over the last 2 years are just the start of our problems, one. Secondarily, I would absolutely agree that just the size of the building itself is overwhelming. I would agree with one of my neighbors who mentioned, there is a character to our neighborhood. When you come to the top of Windermere and you look at the city, you're going to miss that entire beautiful view that all of us enjoy around here. And I 100% support the mission of St. Mary's. Have done a lot of work with them over the years, and so I very much am in support. I do just wish we'd think about the significant impacts this is going to have on those of us that live close by over the coming years.
Thank you, Star. Desiree Baines, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for the time. I live on Everett Avenue, that's downhill from St. Mary's Center. And again, I want to echo a lot of the comments that some of my neighbors have also mentioned about the size of the building, the character of the building. I guess the one other thing that I might want to add is, and I think the speaker before me mentioned it, about the water that runs downhill. I'm one of those people that get that water that comes down the hill. And again, one other thing, I know no one wants to talk about this, but the traffic, it's a very tight one-way road. And I think adding that 71 more units of housing in such tight space with people to get through is something that we need to consider as part of this project. I support it. We've always supported these types of projects in Jonesville, but I think it needs to be designed and developed in such a way that it enhances the community and continue to make it a place that we could all live and enjoy being here without impacting each other. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to testify about this project? Madam Chair, I believe this concludes the public hearing portion of this item.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to everyone who came today to testify. I definitely look forward to those testimonies so we can get a good sense of what are some of the themes, right, of the discussions that are going on in our neighborhoods. So, and as board members, we do take this very seriously. We get all the letters and emails and comments, and I just want to reiterate that is included in our board package when we get it to review. So, I guess I just wanted to say that. But I'm going to open it up first to board members for questions. I have taken some notes and on all of the themes, so we'll make sure that we get to them. But any questions or comments from the board?
Why was the community engagement process waived for this project?
Hi, Dr. Landsmark. My name is Caitlin Coppinger. I'm the Deputy Director of Comprehensive Planning. I think that's a great question. The one thing that I do want to stress is the community engagement process wasn't waived for this process. The one thing that we did waive was the impact advisory group process. So an impact advisory group was waived due to the significant affordability component. As a reminder, last fall, Mayor Wu signed an executive order to streamline affordable housing in an effort to prioritize the review of affordable housing projects. The goal was really to significantly reduce the time it takes to permit projects, and the BPDA's current practice is to waive IEGs for most projects that include 60% or more of affordable housing. This project is providing 100% of their units as either income-restricted affordable housing or permanent supportive housing units with project-based rental assistance. I think the one thing that I really want to stress here is that the lack of an impact advisory group doesn't actually replace the request for mitigation or community process. And when projects apply for City of Boston resources, as this project is, there's a need to identify significant community support and reach out to their abutters and neighbors outside of the actual permitting process. I'm happy to answer any other questions if there are questions in regards to the process for streamlining affordable housing.
And could you also comment on what the specifics of the mitigation are?
Hi, Dr. Landsmark. This is Camille Platt. I'm a project manager with the BPDA. So some of the mitigation aspects, one of them including, to go off what Caitlin had mentioned as well, the deep affordability, it's replacing 51 units, but is also including 71 new units of supportive housing that range between 2 and 4 bedroom units as well, which we generally do not see too often being proposed in many projects today. There's also, I know folks had mentioned the stormwater piece of it. That was a huge part of mitigation in terms of updating their stormwater infrastructure as part of the overall project and its approval. Landscaping was another component that had come up. So there is significant landscaping and significant an increase in tree plantings, as well as speaking with the abutters in terms of their concerns with the trees that are on site today. So they are mitigating those aspects of it. Landscaping includes a new court, a new playground, as the architect had mentioned, with sensory elements as well for children that are living on that campus. And again, for more children and families to be able to go to that campus. And then in terms of, I know density had been mentioned as well. I know that the architect had mentioned the stepping aspect of that. That had been come to over a period of multiple community meetings as well as staff meetings with our urban design staff as well as others. So I know that, again, that last piece may not be specific mitigation, but just a piece of the density aspect that I know had been brought up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Okay, so let me go back to my list. I think you hit a bunch of them. So we talked about the water erosion. We talked about the IEG waivers and BPDA community engagement process. Let's talk about parking and traffic. Can someone comment on the rationale for the amount of parking that there is and any studying of the traffic patterns around there and how we think that's going to impact the neighborhood?
Sure. I'd like to introduce myself. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Carla Chaffee. I'm the attorney permitting this project. We should, and I hope, have our traffic consultant here who can talk about the studies and the mitigation measures that we've planned. Really, the parking is above and beyond the affordability standards that are provided for in the Boston zoning code. We assessed the need for parking of both employees, current shelter residents, as well as potential new residents, and found that based on those needs, the proposed 72 parking spaces were more than adequate. We've been working with BPDA and staff regarding that as well. again, since this meets and exceeds the city standards, we believe that we're in a very good place for the parking. And I just would ask if Dan from Van Ness is here, if he has any flavor to add to that regarding our traffic studies and the material we presented to BPDA. And if he could raise his hand potentially if he's not on.
Carla. I should be on as a panelist now. Can everyone hear me?
Great, thank you. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much. As Carla said, my name is Dan Blesivda. I'm a traffic engineer with Van Ness & Associates. As a part of the project, we did complete a full and detailed transportation impact assessment study that looked at multiple different intersections in the Jones Hill area, and as well as the parking for the mitigation relating to transportation, because I know that has been brought up. We developed a comprehensive transportation demand management program with the city, with BPDA, to try to limit the number of vehicles that will enter and exit the site. And just kind of the overarching result of the traffic study was that the project will not result in a significant amount of increased vehicle trips going to or coming from the site. So there wasn't any large amount of mitigation we found necessary. And we've been working with and presented to the BPDA and have received their comments, which were mainly related to bicycle parking on the site.
Okay, thank you very much for addressing those things. Let's move on to supportive services. So maybe someone from St. Mary's can talk about how you support this, those that are in the supportive housing and this community, and kind of what resources are they going to have, or the neighbors, the community going to have?
I'm happy to address, Carla. Yeah?
Yes, please.
Happy to address. So I just want to state that we serve families, not individuals, and I know that addiction and other struggles are quite prevalent, I think, with a lot of individuals experiencing homelessness, that there are protections in place for children that make them a little bit of outliers within our population served. However, that being said, our 4 pillars of support are surrounded around providing equitable access to social determinants of health, being we provide education and employment services to all of our families on campus. We provide behavioral health and family medicine through a partner, Boston Healthcare for the Homeless, as well as we provide life skills, anything from financial literacy to nutrition. And the goal is to have stably housed families being widely supported by our teams on campus. Part of why we are expanding into permanent supportive housing is that we feel that our model within transitional housing, which currently sits on our campus, has been extremely successful. To just provide context, the average rate of a family, of a teen mother getting their GED or high school diploma is 50% by the age of 22. 100% of our families that have moved through our young parenting program to our transitional housing program, which is very similar to this program that we're building, have not only succeeded in obtaining their GED and high school diploma, they are also all in advanced education, obtaining higher level degrees. In addition, 100% of those families have have remained stably housed after leaving that program, and 100% have kept custody of their children and remained whole. So through that data, you can see that our supportive services of working with families through the entire housing trajectory is working, and we feel very confident that we'll continue those services with our permanent supportive housing.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm just going through my notes. Board members, did you catch any other themes that maybe we haven't addressed?
Yes, through the chair. I was wondering, prior to today's meeting, have the development team and the neighborhood, the butters actually, have they had a chance to speak about, the architectural designs? Because that was brought up a lot today. So I guess that would be my question. Has there been any back and forth conversations about the architectural design of the building?
Yes, if I may. Thank you. It was mentioned earlier in the presentation today, but this is again something that I would very much like to stress, is that St. Mary's Center began working with the closest abutters to the building in early 2023, well before we filed a letter of intent, well before we filed the project notification form. As a result of those meetings, we did undergo a very extensive redesign of the building, doing a two-step down and lowering the floors by 2 stories. It is going to make the building more expensive to develop, but that was a direct result of the conversations that we had with the neighborhood. We also held a community meeting as well, where these concerns with design and the look of the building, although it was presented to the community, was not strongly expressed in opposition. In our meetings closer to this date, last month, the previous month, we had assured our closest abutters, and we remain committed to working with them, that as we go through the final design process with staff and contract approvals, that items that were, of great concern, the size of the windows and screening, we would continue to work with urban design staff to try to address those concerns before final urban design sign-off. We've remained throughout, the entire year of 2023 and hope to continue in 2024 to meet with the neighborhood and the abutters. So those design items, including landscaping, stormwater, have all been discussed with the neighborhood. We are at schematic design, so we look forward to an opportunity to continue to work with the city and continue to work with the abutters. I think tonight you're hearing some potential misunderstanding of the process and that we're not ready to pull building permits tomorrow. We'll be working with staff, we'll be working with the community for the next 10 months at least. And we, will continue our commitment to continue working with our closest neighbors.
Commissioner Shepard, if I could build on that. My name is Seth Reisman. I'm the Deputy Director for Design Review at the BPDA. As the proponent mentioned, the BPDA staff and BCDC have worked with the proponent for many months at advancing this design. And one of the major changes achieved through that process was the change in massing to make it more compatible with the slope and the surrounding community. And as the proponent pointed out, the design is really still at the beginning. Staff will be working very closely with the proponent during their documentation advancement process to continue to advance the design, which is at a very schematic level, and improve it with all the comments that we've received to date from the community. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the board? Okay. So I think we've addressed all of the themes that you brought up. They aren't necessarily new themes for us. We read these and studied them as we were preparing for this meeting. I do want to say though that that I actually, well, maybe it's just my taste, but I actually did like the design. I like that the design is being intentional to the extent that you're, making trauma-informed decisions. Like that's, to me, just a really shows a commitment, right, to the residents that will be living here, and the way that I saw the renderings, it looks like a safe, supported, hopeful place. And that's what, I think that's what we have to vote on now. So with that, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And we hope that there's that continued conversation process. So those that came, you know where to find us. You can contact the BPDA or the developers to continue this conversation and influence the design as Seth said. Okay.
Madam Chair, before we begin the next item, we're going to take Councillor Durkin.
Oh, okay. All right, Councillor Durkin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chair Rojas. Dear Chair Rojas and members of the board, I would like to thank the BPDA and members of the CAC for their work throughout the Article 80 review process on 1400 Boylston Street. The city, developers, and community have worked together to produce a project that serves the needs of the neighborhood, and I'm grateful to see that collaboration and partnership in action. Samuels and Associates stands out as a developer who truly understands the needs of the Fenway. Their work in the neighborhood over the past 25 years has been transformative. They constantly go beyond just the buildings themselves. Their projects offer tangible benefits that contribute to the overall fabric of the neighborhood, whether it's the inclusion of a public green space or accessible amenities of all ages. Samuel's commitment to creating inclusive and sustainable spaces is clear, and that same dedication is present in the proposal we see before us today. This proposal at 1400 Boylston Street seeks to greatly improve the public space from its condition, which is currently uninviting, a non-inviting environment full of curb cuts and an excessive amount of asphalt, through a complete rebuild of the adjacent parts of Park Drive, Boylston Street, and Kilmarnock. The green space will serve to break up and link the underutilized stretch of the Emerald Necklace. In a fast-growing neighborhood, it's all more important to provide green spaces that serve as much needed respite within an urban fabric. I commend the developer for acknowledging the significance that properties at the doorstep of the Emerald Necklace carry. I'm extraordinarily excited that this new public green space will be complemented by another much-needed component of a healthy neighborhood, a branch of the Boston Public Library. With their $12 million commitment to a build-out of a civic space intended at the library, the Fenway neighborhood will, at long last, receive a public institution that cultivates lifelong learning, arts, culture, and community. I am particularly cognizant that the Fenway neighborhood cannot continue to grow in a commercial and entertainment uses without a complementary growth in essential public amenities. This is an incredible first step to creating a neighborhood that welcomes people of all ages to call this neighborhood home for more than just a few years. Understanding the necessity and community support for a library in the Fenway, I am eager to participate in BPL's upcoming public process and uplift comments I've already heard from constituents around the need for collaboration with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and ensuring that this space remains public in perpetuity with a focus on potential after-hours engagements there. I remain heartened that the library in the Fenway reinforces many of the principles outlined in BPL's strategic plan. The project will provide for safe travel to and through the site via a narrowing of the crossing at Park Drive and Boylston Street, expanded sidewalks, reduced curb cuts, and a commitment via the developer's Landmark Center development to provide shuttle access for 3 years between Star Market, as currently cited, and the new Star Market location. On that note, I encourage the developer to ensure that their chosen shuttle operator will meet the needs of an aging population with mobility and access challenges. With their commitment to the neighborhood, I have no doubt that they will continue to include community members in this process. Finally, this project includes meaningful community benefits, the developer's housing contribution to a separate development at 165 Park Drive, including 48 affordable homeownership units, which I supported and has already gotten approvals, provides a significant benefit to the neighborhood and the city sorely in need of more affordable housing. For the reasons stated and the meaningful community support the project has garnered from residents and a host of benefits to the Fenway community, I urge the board to approve this project tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, so we're going to start the second public meeting. Okay, that's agenda item number 20. Simultaneous Cantonese and Mandarin interpretations are being provided for this meeting using the language interpretation function within Zoom. We ask that you please be patient in case of any technical issues. Language interpretation will not be enabled until instructions on how to access interpretations have been translated. Once interpretation has been enabled, a globe icon will appear at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Also, an important reminder to all who are presenting and commenting today, we ask that you speak slowly for the interpreters. If you're speaking too fast, I may interrupt you and ask you to speak slower so that the translators can catch up with the information. So thank you. To enable the interpretation services for Cantonese or Mandarin, click on the globe icon on the bottom of your screen and select the language you want to hear. Also, you must mute original audio. So now, Huaran, will you please interpret the instructions that I gave into Cantonese?
Hello everyone, my name is Huaran. I am the Cantonese interpreter for tonight's meeting. 我姓何，我係你哋今晚嘅翻譯。咁一陣間咧，當呢一個翻譯嘅房間打開之後咧，你就會喺屏幕底下咧睇到一個地球儀。呢個地球儀啦，係寫住 interpretation 或者係寫住翻譯嘅。咁你點開個地球儀之後，咁咧就點過去 Cantonese 廣東話嗰邊，咁咧你就可以聽到我今晚嘅翻譯。多謝 ，thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Anita, will you now please interpret the instructions I gave into Mandarin?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Anita. I am the Mandarin interpreter. 大家好，我是你们的普通话翻译，我叫 Anita。然后今天晚上的会议是会以粤语跟普通话的同声传译的。然后当进入呢同声传译的页面当中，你会看到下面会有个地球仪，你需要点击地球仪，然后点入普通话的频道，然后进行收听。如果你有任何疑问的话，也可以举手发言。好，感谢大家。Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ani, will you now please activate the interpretation? We'll just give folks a few seconds to join. The globe icon is now at the bottom of the screen, and you can just click on it and select your language. Okay, so if you are having difficulty activating the interpretation, please call the phone number on the screen. If you have difficulties with the translation later in the meeting, you can also call that same number. We have interpreters available to assist you over the phone. Secretary Polhimas just checking in on the interpretation channels.
We're good.
Okay, awesome. Okay. The project presentation has been translated into Cantonese and Mandarin and is available on the BPDA website at bostonplans.org. about-us/BPDA-board/meetings. Please take note of the website address on the screen to view the translated project presentation. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Articles 3-1A, 80A-2, and 80C-5 of the Boston Zoning Code to consider the proposed plan development area development plan number 151, 1400 Boylston Street. This hearing was duly advertised on February 2nd, 2024 in the Boston Herald. This is a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency. Staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, anyone who wishes to testify about the proposed project will be afforded an opportunity. We are taking support and opposition at the same time. If you are planning to testify, please take time now to verify that your computer microphone is active and click on the hand icon on your Zoom control panel. This will signal to the staff that you would like to speak. When your hand is raised, it will be blue. If you are calling into the meeting and would like to testify, please dial *9 to raise your hand. When I call for all testimony, staff will announce your name and allow you to talk. You must unmute your microphone and your webcam will not be active. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. And at that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. And Mr. Balchich will now begin the presentation. I didn't know I didn't pronounce your name right. How do you say it?
It's Balsich.
Okay, I usually just call you Quinn. So it was Mr. Balchich. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Secretary Paulimas, and Director Jemison. Proposal before you is for an Article 80 large project known as the 1400 Boylston Street project in the Fenway neighborhood of Boston, and an associated plan development area development plan, what will become PDA number 151. The proposed project is for a mixed-use building containing approximately 548,000 square feet of gross floor area that includes ground floor retail space and office/research lab space in the remainder of the building. The project includes parking for up to 409 vehicles, of which 246 are net new spaces. The project includes significant public benefits, key among which is the construction of a 5,000 square foot civic building on the project site, which is intended to be used as a Boston Public Library facility. They're also contributing $18 million to support affordable homeownership units at a nearby development project, $1.3 million to support additional affordable housing opportunities with the Fenway CDC, $1.75 million to the Boston Parks Department for the support of the Back Bay Fens and Rambler Park, and committing up to $2.7 million in infrastructure improvements in the vicinity of the project site. The proponent has engaged in a robust and collaborative community process that has made changes to the project and the benefits in response to input received. The proponents filed their project notification form on June 6, 2022, followed by their draft project impact report on September 19th, 2023, and the draft PDA development plan on December 14th, 2023. The BPDA held public meetings on August 1st, 2022, October 18th, and November 6th, 2023, a Citizens Advisory Committee, or CAC, meeting on September 13th, 2022, October 25th, 2022, November 1st, 2022, and October 23rd, 2023, and a joint CAC and public meeting on January 17th, 2024. All meetings were well attended, and the public meetings were advertised in the local newspaper and online. I want to thank the BPDA staff, CAC members, and members of the public who contributed their time and efforts to improving this project. through the course of our review. I'll now turn it over to my colleague Ted Schwartzberg from the BPDA Zoning Compliance Team to discuss the planning context that was considered in the review of this project before the development team begin their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Good evening, Chair Rojas, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus, and Director Jemison. I'm Ted Schwartzberg, Assistant Deputy Director for Zoning Compliance. I joined this evening to address the planning and zoning context for this proposal. The proposed project is located within the Fenway Triangle Neighborhood Development Area Zoning District. In 2022, BPDA staff initiated a public process and rezoning study to ensure the zoning in Fenway enabled development appropriate for the current context and consistent with the community's current preferences. This process resulted in new zoning for this location, making this site eligible for planned development area zoning overlays. The most recent neighborhood-specific plan for this area was adopted in 2012. Although the plan provides some relevant recommendations, the context has greatly evolved since this time, back at a time when planners contemplated a future without the Red Sox and Fenway Park in their current location. Staff review was also informed by the neighborhood context, including the adjacent Emerald Necklace, and this park adjacency also triggered review by Parks Department staff per Ordinance 7.4-11. Next slide, please. Planned development areas are allowed in this zoning district provided that the associated proposal delivers certain public benefits, including new jobs and the creation of open space. The proposed planned development area zoning overlay being considered tonight would make the proposed uses, including research lab, allowed. The underlying zoning places limits on maximum building dimension for planned development area overlays, and the proposal being considered tonight is consistent with these limits. The proposal went through extensive design review in order to ensure it improves the area's public realm and multimodal mobility options. Thank you for your time this evening. I'll now hand it over to the development team to present their proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn and Ted. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Jemison, and Secretary Polhemus. My name is Peter Sigarides, and I'm a principal at Samuels & Associates, a real estate firm that's headquartered in the Fenway neighborhood of Boston. Some of you may know that we've been working in the Fenway neighborhood for over 25 years, and I personally have been involved for 24 of those years. Over the years, we have worked closely with the Fenway community to help bring their vision forward of the remaking of the Boylston Street corridor into a mixed-use environment. Many will recall that the Boylston Street corridor consisted primarily of parking lots, gas stations, and fast food restaurants with drive-thrus. I'm very proud this evening to present to you a project that we have worked on for over 3 years with the community. And this project consists of the redevelopment of 1400 Boylston Street, also known as the Star Market property. We are currently under construction across the street at 421 Park, the old Sears building, with a new building that will house a brand new and expanded Star Market that will continue to serve the Fenway community. We have worked closely with the Fenway community, BPDA staff, and other city departments to craft this project. We are very pleased that this project, to present this project to the board this evening, having undergone many changes and improvements to the design and layout based on input from various stakeholders. I'm also especially proud of the fact that the project allows us to provide some extraordinary and unique community benefits to the project, for the Fenway neighborhood and for the city of Boston. Quinn mentioned some of those, and I will elaborate a little bit further on those at the end of the presentation. At this point, I would like to turn the presentation over to David Manfredi of Velkus Manfredi Architects to provide an overview of the project.
Chair Rojas, Director Jemison, Secretary Polhemus, members of the board, and David Manfredi from Velkus Manfredi Architects. Pleased to be with you this evening. Next, please. An aerial photograph here shows the site. It's this L-shaped site with pretty extraordinary public presence. There's 600 feet of linear frontage on Boylston Street. There's 250 feet on Park Drive. It is 2.4 acres of land, and it's really extraordinary for its proximity to the Emerald Necklace, but also the opportunity that it offers us, that is Samuels and Associates, who collaborated with Dr. Smith-Freddie over all of those 24 years that Peter mentioned, that it is the next piece in a series of buildings that includes 401 Park, the old Sears Roebuck building, 201 Brookline immediately to the north, and under construction now 421 Park. Because it has given us the opportunity to make a green link, a connection from the Fenway T, first all the way to the intersection of Boylston and Brookline, and now even farther to Peterborough Street. Next, please. The site today, you probably all know very well, a view from Brookline at the top, looking east, the old gas station on the corner, and the Star Market beyond, and then a view on Boylston looking west, and a view from Park Drive looking north. Single-story building, surface parking, clearly highly underutilized site. Next, please. As I mentioned, this is the fourth building that we've had the opportunity to work with Samuels and Associates, and together they have created this extraordinary green space that, as I said, stretches from the T, and it will stretch all the way to Peterborough. This new addition is more than a half an acre. The entire length of this green space is over 1,000 feet. And it clearly is an important pedestrian connection from the Fenway residential part of the Fenway neighborhood to Brookline Avenue, to Boylston Street, to the T, to Fenway Park, and beyond to Kenmore Square. You can go to the next, please. So a rendering of the site plan, and you can see the parcels that I talked about and the opportunity to make direct connection across that five-way intersection. The building itself is only the site itself is only 108 feet wide. It's a very narrow building, but it is a long building. And you can just see on the west end of this building, right at the intersection, you can see that green space, and just below the green space is the 5,000 square foot civic building intended for the Boston Public Library. You can also see that the massing of the building, especially on the west side, was framed by input from Rainbow Park and from the neighbors of Rainbow Park. Rainbow Park enjoys just really wonderful view, the sunsets, early in the summer, late in the day, obviously, and wanted to preserve that view. And we wanted to preserve access of daylight into Ramblin'. So you can see that the western end of the building is stepped back in 6 consecutive steps, so each about 25 feet wide, and that allows the view to the setting sun on June 21st, allows daylight penetration into Ramblin' Park, which is a real gem in the city and the South End. We'll go to the next. On floor plan, just a couple of things that I'd like to point out. You can see the footprint of the building. There are 2 private alleys. The building spans over private alley number 931. And the only other building on the site between the alley and Park Drive is the 5,000 square foot library building. You'll notice that the pink represents continuous retail along Boylston and then walks around into the park. It completes the double-sided nature of Boylston Street. It will definitely benefit the retail on the opposite side of the street. It completes this end of Boylston Street. You'll notice a couple of important things. Number one, the very wide sidewalks. This is part of the zoning of Boylston Street. There's 25 feet of dimension from the curb to the building at its minimum dimension. This will be brand new cycle tracks here and on Park Drive complete streets. You can see the landscaping of the street. Maybe the most important thing is that we have access to the private alley, the property line that divides the private alley. But we're not taking that access. We're bringing all of the loading in off of Boston. That's the blue line. It comes along the private alley and then into an enclosed loading area, fully enclosed. The doors go up, the truck comes in, the doors go down, and all the loading docks are inside the building. And then the truck exits onto Kilmarnock to a signalized intersection, turns right or left. Vehicular traffic comes in off of Kilmarnock, that's the turquoise dashed lines, goes to the parking below grade that Quinn mentioned. So there's no interference in the use of the private alley that is shared with the residents on Peterborough Street. Let's go to the next. Oh, I want one more thing here, sorry. One more thing I want to point out because it was pointed out by the councilor. Significant improvements at that triangular intersection. There have been a number of complaints and issues around a very irregular intersection. The triangle is going to be reconfigured by new bulldozers, new bike lanes, and new crosswalks to reduce the dimension of pedestrian traffic from this side of Boylston to the triangle and from the triangle to the opposite side of Brooklyn. Next, please. And here you can see all of that pedestrian connection, all of the bicycle connections that will now be created as vertically separated bike lanes, and you can see the park, and I'll show the park to you in a moment in 3 dimensions. Go to the next, please. So several perspective views, this one from Brookline Ave and Park Drive. You can see those steps in the building, 2 stories at a time. That opens that view corridor from Ramler to the Sunset, but more importantly, allows the daylight penetration into the park. You can see the building, as I said, is narrow. We've divided it up on its long side into 4 unequal parts. There's kind of these incisions into the building in order to emphasize those parts, but it's one building. And we've pulled the building material, the primary building material, up beyond the top occupiable floor in order to reduce the visual dimension of the mechanical penthouses. And I think we all recognize that as these buildings have evolved in the city, the penthouses are big, but there are strategies like this that make them feel more appropriate to the scale of the building. You can go to the next, please. You see that the building that will be LEED Gold. It has a highly efficient building envelope. It has a very targeted ratio of transparency to opacity in order to achieve the highest goals possible. The final building material we have presented to BPDA and BCDC as brick, terracotta, or ultra-high performance concrete. Given the vagaries of the construction market, we'll make final decisions with the input, obviously, of BPDA as we get closer to that date. Go to the next, please. This is a view from Park Drive. And so I'm at the corner of Park Drive and Peterborough. You can see the Civic building in the foreground. It is a little bit earlier in its development as we work with BPL in the neighborhood. But the goal is transparent. Libraries have changed. They're more about community and gathering space than they are about books, but they are about access to computers and information and learning of all kinds. It's 18 feet tall, 5,000 square feet in footprint. And you can see the segregated cycle track and the entrance into the park. Next, please. The park's been designed by Keith LeBlanc, and you can see we wanted this to be different than the park at 401. That's a very active park with Trillium and the the ice rink in the wintertime. This is a more passive park with the adjacency of the library. It's a green space, fully accessible, 24/7 to the neighborhood. Next, please. And we can see there's some hardscape at the park, at the library, excuse me. And the intention is to really be a destination for the neighborhood, take advantage of the adjacency to the Leander Necklace and this continuation, this walk through green space all the way to the Green Line and to the trail. Next. With that, we'll go back to Peter.
Thank you, David, for that overview. I will wrap it up. This is our last slide, and Quinn spoke about some of this. I just want to recap the community benefits, and these are just some of the benefits. There are others that are not listed here. So just to recap, we are contributing $18 million to a project in the Fenway. It's a housing project located at 165 Park Drive. It's been approved recently by the BPDA. That will enable that project to construct 117 residential units, including 48 homeownership affordable units. We additionally will be providing $1.3 million to the Fenway CDC for the CDC to create further additional affordable housing in the Fenway neighborhood. $6.8 million will go to the Neighborhood Housing Trust and the Jobs Trust. As David described, we are creating about a half acre of publicly accessible open space in addition to all of the other public realm of improvements around the site. We have additionally committed to constructing the Civic Building for a $12 million commitment, and that is intended to be programmed as a neighborhood branch of the Boston Public Library. Additionally, $2.7 million in off-site transportation improvements. That's in addition to the complete streets and other sidewalks that we will be rebuilding around the property. Not listed here, however, as Quinn had mentioned earlier, there's $1.75 million that will be going to a combination of Boston Parks and Recreation for earmarked towards the Back Bay fence and also towards the funds for Rambler Park that's located just south of the site. There are other mitigation measures that were not mentioned here. They're in the board memo and PDA as well. That concludes our presentation, and we're happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you so much. As this is a public hearing, we'll take public testimony first. So Secretary Polhemus, do we have anyone who would like to testify?
Yes. Catherine Greeno, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, my name's Catherine Greeno, and I live at 857 Beacon Street. I'm a board member of the Audubon Circle Neighborhood Association, and I've worked with Peter and Samuel's Associates for many years on many of their projects. My comments on this project, I first want to say some positive things about the project. I'm very pleased that the design was altered so that the project steps back as it gets higher and higher. That, I think, makes the building much more attractive. Plus, the fact that there could be, if everything goes smoothly, a new public library on that site is very exciting. The open park space that Samuels has committed to is really a wonderful addition and mirrors their other open space area in front of the Landmark Center, the 401 Park Drive, which has been so successful. Plus, this project promises additional significant benefits to 165 Park Drive, to Rambler Park, and so forth. What concerns me are the shadows that this project will impose on the public parks. And public parks are a public trust that were created by our ancestors to improve and maintain our physical and mental health. They really should not be violated in any way. And the BPDA would even consider allowing shadows on public parks reflects how little the BPDA, the BRA, has learned over the years about the public trust and public health. I would urge the BPDA to work with Samuels to lower the height of this building so that shadows are not cast
Thank you
on
very
the
much.
Emerald Necklace.
I really appreciate that. We are at the 2-minute limit, but we'll address that theme of shadows in the Q&A section, the board Q&A section. Okay?
Timothy Horn, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tim Horn. I'm president of Fenway Civic Association. I was also a member of the IAG or CAC on this project. I'm here to actually support this project and hope that it will go forward. I would like to just we have a letter on file which outlines all of our support. But basically the fact that it is a PDA and we are finally getting workforce housing, actually in this case, housing that you can actually buy, is a huge step forward. Something that we wanted and was the goal of the zoning process in the very first place. And for that, I'm very happy. I'm extremely happy to hear the idea of a public library, something that is a permanent fixture in our neighborhood. It does not need external support in order to continue. This is a huge benefit that will go on for generations and really be a great benefit for the Fenway. And the last thing I would really like to say is that we have to recognize that the developer has looked at this site, and instead of going for the maximum amount of FAR and height that's available inside of this PDA, they have limited themselves and actually drawn back their project and made it smaller in order to accommodate the neighbors. And I think that was a long process that happened amongst the neighbors that are immediately around that neighborhood. And I think that has to be respected. It's, if other developers in our neighborhood would do the same, so they're not actually going for variances on height, it would be unimaginably good. I just want to thank Samuels & Associates for listening to public input and making changes to their project as it came along. And I think this project is a fabulous concept. And the idea that they actually created real workforce housing opportunities to finally support the middle class in Fenway is just undeniably amazing. It's just something that needed to happen a long time ago and has never been pushed through at the city level. And basically a lot of our PDA monies went all off-site. And to see something to happen here in the Fenway with that money is awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Andre Jones, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I'm Andre Jones. I'm here to represent Holy Trinity Orthodox Church at 165 Park Drive. And I'd like to, so in representing on their behalf, I'd like to voice support for this project. We applaud Samuels & Associates' past thoughtful contributions to the revitalization of the Fenway neighborhood. and their thoughtful cooperation and agreement to provide meaningful community benefits in connection with this project. Those benefits include its financial support of Holy Trinity Orthodox Cathedral's vision of providing affordable housing to the Fenway neighborhood. That support will result, as previously mentioned, in the development of 48 affordable ownership units without any public subsidy. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie Fukuda, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, and thanks to the board for allowing me to speak. My name is Marie Fukuda, and I'm speaking as a 38-year Fenway resident to voice my support for the 1400 Boylston project. I've attended most all of the project meetings and have been happy to see the ways it's progressed and responded to resident concern. I'm supportive of two key ways this project contributes permanently to the benefit of our neighborhood. While housing wasn't proposed on this site, the developer worked creatively with a nearby project and the city to leverage and fund the housing at 165 Park Drive, resulting in the funding of a zoning compliant building with 48 affordable homeownership units. To me, this showed both eagerness to honor the intent of our zoning and responsibility in establishing that commitment. Fenway has seen a lot of housing dollars taken out of the neighborhood in the last several decades, and the creation of actual affordable home ownership opportunities here is a game changer for us. It validates what we codified in our zoning and should be recognized and lifted up. I want to next express deep enthusiasm for, as well as gratitude to the developer, BPDA, and the city for identifying a path to an enduring community resource to this neighborhood via the civic building intended for library use. This will be the first permanent community resource for the neighborhood, groundbreaking for the Fenway and deeply meaningful for me. A library assures us a place we can go to for information and resources, providing space to read and sit. This is something that older residents commented on repeatedly since the closure of Burger King so many years ago. While public transit to the Copley branch has been curtailed with 55 bus cuts, having library resources here means we can all be part of the Boston Public Library experience, and that there is a path to the Fenway securing resources that promote the well-being of its residents. Libraries are special as a democratic institution that belongs to us and grants us freedom to read, speak, view, and participate. These are two key reasons for my support in the project, and I hope you move forward in support today as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Mina Perez, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Madam Chair, members of the board, Mina Perez, representing hundreds of union carpenters that live and work throughout the city of Boston. Madam Chair, I'd like to go on record in strong support of this project. I also like to take a second to thank the proponent, Peter, and his team from Samuels for going above and beyond on accommodating the neighborhood. It is nothing but good things coming out of this project. I think it's really exciting. I also like to take a second to thank the Office of Mayor Wu for allowing the community to be part of the process. With that, we're in full support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina. Kathleen McBride, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, hello everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Kathy McBride, a local resident and a butter to the project, and I was on the IAG. Also do a lot of volunteer work with the Fenway Civic Association in Rambler Park. I speak in support of the project. The neighborhood has been an early adopter of working with the city on local zoning that addresses density and housing. We long ago entered an agreement with the city that accepted very high zoning heights and density in exchange for getting workforce housing in our neighborhood. But for many years, we didn't see any of the benefits materialize, or they were not realized outside in the Fenway. They were realized outside. So for this development, I'm very happy because the benefits are focused on this neighborhood where they should be. And the developer worked very hard with this neighborhood to produce appropriate benefits, which is the reason I support this development. Samuel's heard the community request and responded to our priorities. They've respected our existing assets, the Emerald Necklace, Rambler Park, and as equally important, the character of this neighborhood, to work with us to give us significant and relevant benefits to the neighborhood. Parks and open space are of the utmost importance to this community, and the footprint respects that. The $12 million to fund a civic space is out of this world phenomenal. We really want the library, and we're so happy and thrilled that this is finally coming to us when we've been asking for it for so long. Also, I'd like to point out the support for Ramla Park and the Back Bay fence, which were adjacent to this project, and will greatly benefit from this financial support that it so deserves and needs. I'd also like to point out the benefit is an interesting financial agreement with the Transom project on Park Drive, a model that should be replicated, where we're getting direct funding for affordable home ownership. So I strongly support and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kathleen.
Thank you. Dolores Bogdanian, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, yes, good evening. My name is Dolores Bogdanian. I live on Park Drive in Boston, and due to limited time, I'll just try to keep my comments short. I don't challenge any of the benefits that have been identified in the testimony so far. I just want to say that while the project could in fact be taller due to the zoning changes the city approved, the fact is the project still will cast shadow on our public parkland. And I don't think this publicly accessible open space at the intersection of Brookline Avenue, Boylston Street, and Park Drive, which is one of, if not the biggest and busiest intersections in the Fenway, and possibly the city, is in any way an offset. I would invite you to come out and hang out at that intersection and listen to the honking and traffic noises and look at the litter and smell the exhaust and tell me it's as good as a walk in the park along the Muddy River. So, I mean, I really do think that we, all of us, have an obligation to preserve the legacy that we received and that we should be obliged to pass on to those coming in the future. The other thing I want to say is that this is yet another very large project for research and development, and a good portion of the building is already under agreement with Children's Hospital for installing lab space, which is, I presume, why the proponent wants lab use as an allowed use rather than conditional based on compliance with public health standards. But what now? Last March, the BPDA promised public meetings about the public safety issues associated with laboratory uses, and yet none has materialized. The mantra that labs are heavily regulated means nothing if we don't know by whom or whether those who would be responsible for such regulation are ready for the millions of square feet of new lab space to become occupied not only in Boston, but throughout the state and even the country. Are the state and federal regulating entities ready? Is Boston? You know, if it were not for a global pandemic that in most likelihood started in a lab, this question might seem dismissible. But when one considers the economic of COVID-19 and the loss of millions of lives, I don't think it's dismissible at all. And I'll just say, finally, the lab use should remain conditional until this very important issue is fully addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam Beal, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Secretary Polhemus. My name is Pam Beal, and I'm here tonight as a member of the CAC to speak in favor of this project. Samuels and Associates has done their usual amazing job of listening to and working with the community, and the result is this wonderful project and package of benefits presented here this evening. So in closing, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I ask that you vote to support this important project this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Ryan Hatcher, you can unmute yourself. Ryan, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
My name's Ryan Hatcher. I'm a resident of Fenway and also a member of the CAC. I do appreciate the proponents' engagement with us over the last few months, if not a year and a half or so. One concern that I have that I don't think has been addressed is the number of parking spots. We've added thousands of spots to the neighborhood with all the recent development over the last few years. And as Dolly touched on, this is one of the busiest intersections in the neighborhood. So having 409 spots, which puts this development right at the top from a parking ratio perspective they're just basically touching that 0.75 limit. I think that's something that we can do much better and that we have to do much better as a city. Within a half mile of this location, you have a commuter rail stop, you have multiple MBTA stops, you have multiple bus stops. There's lots of ways for people to get to the site without driving individual cars. And another thing I'd like us to be mindful of is the amount of traffic that will be generated from ride shares as well as food deliveries, picking up and dropping off, and just to make sure that we have adequate space in front of the building for that circulation to occur. And the last thing to touch on, as really all community members have said, I'm very excited about the possibility of that library, and I would like to make sure that that gets codified in so much as possible, that becomes a reality for our neighborhood. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ryan. Cassie White, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Cassie White, and I work at Fenway CDC. I'm here on behalf of my colleague Richard Giordano, a member on the IAG, who had a conflict tonight. Fenway CDC would like to express support for this project. We really value Samuel's commitment to income-restricted housing to preserve the Fenway's vibrancy and diversity by creating more opportunities for residents with low and moderate income to call the Fenway home. Above and beyond the project's required linkage contribution over $6 million, Samuels has committed $1.3 million to support Fenway CDC in a unique opportunity at 43 Hemingway Street to convert 6 student rental units to income-restricted homeownership units. And this will be really transformational for families who will have the opportunity to own their own home in such a great neighborhood. We're also really appreciative of the commitment to 165 Park Drive to create a substantial number of income-restricted homeownership units, as well as the commitment for a public library site. The neighborhood has long been advocating for both affordable homeownership opportunities and a public library, and so we're very pleased to see both of these reflected in this project. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Cassie. Would anybody else like to testify about this project? Please raise your virtual hand.
We got one. Karen?
Yep.
Oh, 2. No, maybe 1. Go ahead.
Karen, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karen Monty Burdick. I'm president of the Emerald Necklace Conservancy. Thank you so much, BPDA board, for providing me the opportunity to say a few words. I really do appreciate the process that this project has gone through and the care that the development team has worked with the neighborhood on the design. It's not too often that a project really steps back in the way that it does to try and minimize shadow. There is a real challenge in our city because there are not consistent shadow guidelines, and that's one thing that I'm excited that $1 million was identified in a previous project to start to establish those guidelines. I'm excited, and I hope that the BPDA staff and the Parks Department staff that have those dollars in hand and they are working to bring on a consultant will help to start to make some of these guidelines and put them in place, because it is a challenge for organizations like mine, the Emerald Necklace Conservancy. We want to make sure that there are opportunities for development, but we also want to protect the parks. And right now, there is a lack of clear guidelines. However, I will say in this project, there was a lot of attention paid, as I understand it, to try not to shadow Rambler Park and sections of the Emerald Necklace. 30 seconds, gotta wrap up. And I thought it was I think it's super exciting about the library. I think more kinds of amenities like that around the Emerald Necklace are tremendous. And I did want to say one thing that I really appreciated about working with the Samuels team is I have never met developers that are so willing to work with all of the transportation planners, all the agencies we have to work with to try and get pathways and bike lanes and all those things worked out, because there's a whole slew of jurisdictions that we're all working through. I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you very much. I hope we can all support the project, and I look forward to working with the neighborhood on developing shadow guidelines in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Freddie, you can unmute yourself.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was trying to figure out how to do that. Okay, this is Frederica Vikely, and I'm a longtime resident of the Fenway, member of the IAG, and my special focus has always been on parks and open space. I'm pleased to support the project. It's befitting of this prominent location. The building is an attractive finishing point to the spine that was created in the Boylston Street nouveau of the last 20 years. It's a highly exposed structure, and we're fortunate that the site was acquired by Samuels and Partners. And the plans for the space, as was mentioned before, have evolved through many designs and uses in the last couple of years, but each iteration became better. In the layout for the Back Bay fence created by Frederick Law Olmsted, a roadway was part of the park. Now it is known as Park Drive here in this area. It is Olmsted's engineering of the Back Bay fence that enables this site to exist and to be built upon. That's why the Parkway Ordinance was put into place to protect our historic parks, and why it's important to the BPDA and everyone else that this ordinance continues to be adhered to in all future parkway projects. With its generous setback and landscaping, this project further emphasizes the value of the Back Bay fence. We appreciate the further assistance this project will provide our surrounding public spaces, and specifically, I'm very appreciative as the president of Friends of Rambler Park that the design adjustments for this project were made with respect to the needs of the late day sunlight for people in Rambler Park. The late day sunlight is so important to people's well-being and enjoyment of the open space. There are a lot of things about this project that are outstanding. I thoroughly support the project, and thank you for the ability to comment.
Thank you, Freddie. Would anybody else like to testify about this project? Please raise your virtual hand. All right. Madam Chair, this concludes the public hearing portion of this item.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
There appears to be a long sidewalk indent along Boylston Street, and I'm curious as to whether that's built into the planning process, particularly given the impact of ride shares along that stretch of Boylston Street.
Super, Dr. Lansmark, yes, there is parallel parking along that south side of Boylston, and the intention is that there's dedicated space for ride shares, because we will get visitors, and that's where they're going to stop. So they will have dedicated space.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments?
Well, I would just say, first of all, kudos to the development team for all the compliments that you've received on the process. And it would be helpful to also just hear the response on the shadow issue.
Certainly. This is Peter Sugarides again. First of all, just in terms of support of the parks, I think Samuel's organization and even myself personally, we've been extremely supportive and love being part of the parks. I've sat on the Emerald Necklace Conservancy Board for many years. We helped part of the original founders or funders for building Rambler Park and supporting it over the 20 years. And so I think and we built a 401 park that converted a parking lot into an open space over at the old Sears building, and are doing the same here. So just for the record, we are very sensitive and mindful of how important open space, accessible open space is for everyone. as it relates to the shadows of the building, one of the unique aspects here is we have a site that's a single-story supermarket with a large parking lot, no structures, and a gas station. So you're starting from this, sort of standpoint where there is nothing. So obviously, anything that gets built will create a shadow. The other aspect is the way the orientation of the sunrise in the site. It's not a height issue. It's really the orientation of the sun and the axis of the sun and the property that creates the shadows. During the process, working with David Benfredi and our design team and landscape architects, we did change the setbacks of the building and the step backs that David talked about along Park Drive, and that helped reduce the shadows. We have some minimal shadows on the back bay fens that are very early morning, because again, sort of the orientation, they're very early morning shadows that move very quickly in the spring and in the fall, and they're off the green space fairly quickly, and as they move, they go into the street. And so we believe that we've worked very hard to minimize any impacts, and again, it is not necessarily a height because of the height of the building. It's the orientation and the fact that there is nothing there to begin with that sort of creates that will create any shadow.
Thank you.
And this is Seth Reisman, Deputy Director for Design Review from the BPDA. I'd like to address that question as well. We worked with the proponents from schemes presented many years ago to dramatically reduce the amount of shadows and significantly change the massing on the site in order to do just that, reduce shadows on the Emerald Necklace and open spaces in general. Excuse me. There are no hard rules that apply to this portion of the fens from this site at the moment. You heard a member of the public earlier speak to a study that is underway or underway shortly, which will be run by the Parks Department, that will seek to establish or potentially establish guidelines for that. But in the interim, we have focused on understanding the impacts of shadows at different times of year and making sure to minimize that and focus on mitigation for any impacts that happen. As Peter mentioned, there are some morning shadows in parts of the year that do fall in the park. I do want to point out that there is a parks ordinance that limits the height of buildings within 100 feet of the fens to 70 feet tall. And in this case, after working with the proponent, they elected to put their primary building beyond this line and dedicate all the space within that 100 feet to publicly accessible open space along with the civic pavilion. Thank you.
Through the chair, I'd just like to say, I've never seen a project of this size really receive so many compliments to the development team. So I definitely want to give kudos to that. And as far as the 117 residential units that are off-site, a lot of times you would hear from the public, why is it off-site? Or in this case, with that being a lab and things of that nature, you wouldn't put it on site at the moment. But even though it's off-site, it's in a beautiful location. It's a stone's throw away. And I just think to see a lot of affordable housing in that area is a great thing as well. So again, kudos to the development team for doing a lot of work with the neighborhood, the CDCs, and just the community benefits alone. Great job.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? I do have a couple. So going back to the labs, can you go over the various safety levels that is intended for this this space, and then also maybe a little bit on your viewpoint, right, on what the demand is for this particular space or particular type of space within the area that kind of drives you to, to make this investment for that use?
Certainly, Madam Chair. So again, Peter Sigarides here. Just taking your questions in order, we have agreed with the BPDA and written into the PDA that by right we would be limited to BSL 1 and 2, and in the event that there is a BSL 3 use, that we would have to come back to the BPDA to discuss that. So we think that that's an appropriate sort of measure in order to allow that the BPDA and the neighborhood would know about a BSL 3 use if that were to be proposed. So the second question in terms of demand, I think as we all know at the moment, demand may be limited. However, when we look at the fact that we've been here in the neighborhood for 25 years, the Samuels organization has been developing in the city for over 40 years. Steve Samuels was the original developer of South Bay Center, and before we sort of moved into more urban projects. So it's a long-term view. If we look at just what we've accomplished over the years, I understand there's this notion of many lab and commercial office lab projects coming through, but we can't forget that as a result of the rezoning that many of us, myself and many of the folks, the community that spoke here this evening, back 25 years ago worked on. As a result of that, I believe the number is close to 2,000 residential units have been built in the Fenway. And so when we look at what has been built for the first 10 to 12 years, the lion's share of the development in the neighborhood that resulted from the zoning, the Article 66 Fenway, the creation of Article 66 Fenway zoning, really created this mixed-use district with primarily housing and retail space. In the more recent past, we are seeing more lab projects. We are bullish over the long term, and we don't know exactly what that is, but we built a beautiful building at 201 Brookline Street, which was phase 2 of the old Sears building, and that's fully occupied, almost fully occupied. We're building another building at 421 Park, which would be partially occupied by Children's Hospital. So there are pockets of demand, and again, we are looking at this over the long term and not necessarily the short term.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that insight. One last thing. So this is for the agency. Can you provide an update either at this meeting or at a future meeting on where we are with the kind of life sciences information session, whatever we were trying to do to, just raise more awareness and educate people on what these levels are. So you say 1 and 2, and 3 is not allowed, but I know that because I'm doing this, right? Like how, that was the intent behind kind of trying to figure something out. So anything on that?
I'm happy to jump in, Madam Chair. I think it would be beneficial suddenly to brief the board at a future meeting. There is a group within the agency that's continuing to work on the issue, and it involves members from planning and urban design as well. So I would hesitate to sort of say much more than that without having them present to speak to the work as well. So we would love to put a pin in it for now and so come back to you with a fuller update.
That's perfect. Thank you. Okay. Any additional questions or comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a great evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers. Okay, so we have one more agenda item. It's director's update. Director Jemison, floor is yours.
Good evening, and thanks so much, members of the board, for your hard work on another great board agenda. Just a quick summary. We have 3 new development projects tonight, 152 residential units, 127 of which are income restricted, 84% of the total. $750 million developer cost estimate. These projects are over 1 million square feet. They will put 841 tradespeople to work and create 1,800 approximately direct jobs. I did want to highlight just a few projects that you approved, just because it's important to do that. 1400 Boylston was approved tonight just now. It's a very exciting development in the Fenway that's going to convert what's currently a grocery store and several parking lots into a large mixed-use development, completing the western entrance to the city from Boylston Street. It's a mix of restaurant, retail, office, and lab space, along with green space. It's going to be adjacent to something we're all very excited about, which is a half-acre of green space on site, and a commitment of $12 million to building a brand new civic building, which is intended to be used as a new branch of the Boston Public Library. This came out of zoning, a very important dialogue and negotiation. We want to say thank you to all the participants, everyone from general counsel to BPL, who's an essential part of the dialogue, and of course members of the community, and crucially the Samuels companies, which made a very significant investment. We're excited to work closely with the Fenway community on programming study to shape the future of this civic space. It's also going to contribute $1.8 million to Parks and Recreation, support of green space in the city. To support the creation of affordable housing, this project will also contribute $5.8 million in a linkage and contribute $18 million to subsidize the creation of income-restricted home ownership units at the nearby 165 Park Drive project. Overall, just a whole series of great developments for the city, and in particular for the Fenway neighborhood, and the result of a lot of hard work of members of my staff and Samuels. St. Mary's is another important project that was approved tonight. We approved updates to the campus for St. Mary's Center for Women and Children in Dorchester, which will create 71 new income-restricted homes for low-income families and renovate 51 current shelter units. St. Mary's is housed at the former St. Margaret Hospital, retrofitted maternity hospital with aging buildings. Renovations will make the shelter units more livable and modernized in the 21st century. Will create new open space designed for the children living at the facility. It's an important organization in our community, offering supportive services to more than 500 women and children at its facilities. I want to thank the staff and the team and the community for the dialogue tonight, and hopefully they heard responses to some of the questions that were asked, and a commitment to follow through that should result in hopefully changes that make them feel good about the project. Finally, I wanted to highlight the dot block event tomorrow, where we're going to celebrate the grantees of over $350,000 in community benefits funding that resulted from the dot block project. Each of these organizations works to enhance the Dorchester neighborhood in various ways. I'm proud we're able to help deliver this funding to support that work. I want to thank the Dot Block Development team and for their partnership, some of whom are also here for the 1400 Boylston project. And I want to thank them for making sure these organizations receive these funds and that are going to have a significant impact on the community. Me and the entire agency look forward to celebrating those accomplishments tomorrow. Thank you very much, members of the board. As it is every one of these board meetings, you guys run an important community function, and you do it well. Appreciate your time and attention tonight. Those are the end of my remarks.
Hey, thank you, Director Jemison. So before we adjourn, this is more for just the board members. So there was one agenda item on the EDIC that I didn't call a vote for. So we're going to adjourn this meeting, and then I'll have to restart the EDIC meeting just to do that last vote. So it will be hopefully quick. All right, so for the BPDA, BRA section of the meeting, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Dr. Landsberg?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. So now I'm going to reopen the EDIC meeting. I will start that by taking a roll call of the members. Ms. Bennett?
Present.
Dr. Landsberg?
Present.
Mr. Shepherd?
Present.
And the chair is present. So the agenda item in question, let's see, was the personnel, number 6. I just jumped the gun on that. It's, I don't think we need another presentation, the personnel items. And so a motion is in order.
So moved, with a question as to whether we also needed to deal with personnel in the other agenda.
I did call the vote on that one.
Okay.
I made sure because when I...
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. Now I need a motion to adjourn this second EDIC mini meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call for a vote. Ms. Bennett?
Aye.
Dr. Landsmark?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Mini meeting adjourned. Okay, that's it. We'll see you all next month. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.